In this video, I'm going to share with you our latest deal that we literally just got under contract last week. We just had the home inspection yesterday, and I'm going to show you how this property is going to relate to $6,000 extra net cash flow coming into us on a monthly basis after all of our expenses. And I'm also going to share with you how you could do something very similar with a similar type of an investment property. So just to provide a little bit of background, so my wife Taryn and I are really intentional about trying to live a lifestyle by design, having autonomy in our life, which basically just means that we don't have somebody telling us where to be, when to be there, and we can spend a lot of time doing things that are really meaningful to us. Spending time with our family. We live on a farm here, so we like spending time outdoors on the farm. We grow a lot of food, we have some animals, and this is our ideal lifestyle by design. And we've used short-term rentals to get to that place. Neither of us work a full-time job anymore. We have plenty of income coming in from the short-term rentals. And so it wasn't always like that. Obviously, we had to start from somewhere, and we started with a few properties, and we did that while we worked a full-time job. And then we got to a place where we had a handful of properties, and it was enough for us to leave our full-time job. And so now our strategy is to just keep a few new projects going at a time, because we have a really good system where everything's automated on a day-to-day basis with our existing short-term rentals. So we're always keeping our eyes open for properties like the one that I'm about to share with you that we can easily add to our portfolio and just consistently increase the monthly income. So I'm going to switch screens here and share with you this new property that's going to create $6,000 of net cash flow. And it's probably not a property that you would anticipate seeing as a short-term rental. And that's actually the reason why it cash flows so much higher than the traditional short-term rentals. There's a few nuanced items that I'll explain when it comes to this particular property. So here's the property. This is a 5-unit property, and they're all small units. They're 1-bedroom, 1-bath units in this, I think it's right around 3,000 square foot property, which is in downtown Valparaiso, Indiana. So this is an area that's an hour outside of Chicago, and I'm a huge advocate for buying in areas just outside of more mainstream short-term rental areas or big cities, so that you still have access to a large population center. There's lots of reasons people travel here, whether it's for vacation or it's just for visiting family or just coming. They want to visit Chicago. They don't want to stay in Chicago. They want to stay close to the Indiana Dunes, which is a national park not too far away from where we live. And so this is a perfect example of a type of property where we're going to get 5 really high cash flowing short-term rentals out of one relatively low cost property. So you can see the pictures here. This is not anything to write home about in terms of the condition of the property right now. It's an estate sale. So somebody inherited the property, they're selling it because it's been in their family forever, and it's got a ton of deferred maintenance. So you can see there's quite a bit of work that needs to be done. So we're getting it for a great price. I went and looked at it when it was listed at $530,000, and I told them I could pay $415, and they kind of laughed at me initially. I said, okay, call me if you can get to $415. And then lo and behold, the price started to drop, and they called me, and so now we're under contract at $415. And so you can see, again, it's a 5-unit apartment building. It's just a couple blocks from downtown Valparaiso, which is a nice area that they're consistently redeveloping. There's more people moving in, and so it's a growing area with lots of attractions. This is on a map, so I always look at the listing first, and then I go to the map to see where it is in relationship to other attractions around. So again, like I said, it's just about an hour outside of Chicago and close to the Dunes National Park and Lake Michigan here. So from there, you can go to the street view also. So if you're investing remotely, the street view is such a great feature because you can look and see, okay, what's the neighborhood like? And you can see this property, which was just fully redeveloped. There's this property, which is probably close to $1 million brand new build. There's some really nice historic homes right on the street. And then the downtown area is right there. So from a location standpoint, it's kind of an ideal location. This is the type of area that I really recommend. So then you can go to AirDNA and you can type in the area that it is. So this is actually part of the Gary submarket, which encompasses a huge area in Northwest Indiana. So this is like the Illinois-Indiana state line here. And then this whole section here is considered the Gary submarket. So Valparaiso, this town falls within that, along with a bunch of other stuff. So the data then, it gives you the averages for this whole submarket. So that's good to see what are the averages, what's the potential for an area, but at the same time, that's 465 active active short-term listings, and they can vary substantially from one area to another. Gary is nowhere near the type of town that Valparaiso is. Like, they're very, very different towns, and you're going to get very, very different results in terms of nightly rate and occupancy in those areas. But it gives you an average. So you can see, okay, 52% occupancy rate and 230 average daily rate. So you can see there's potential there, especially for a pretty affordable property. If you're getting average of 230 average daily rate, you can scroll down, you can see the occupancy at different times throughout the year. So AirDNA can be a really powerful tool just to give you averages. I would never run my numbers based on these averages though, because again, there's a diversity of 450 short-term rentals. So you don't want to base your actual buying based on the average of all these different types of properties. So from there then, we go to Airbnb itself, and you can put in the actual address of the property like I did here, and it pulls up this yellow dot on Airbnb and then all the other short-term rentals around it. So then you can really zoom in and see, okay, in this specific town, on this specific street, what do the other comparable short-term rentals look like? And are there other short-term rentals that are performing well right around it? Because if you do this and it pulls up and it shows you 0 other short-term rentals, you know that's probably a sign there might be a reason for that. You know, there might be regulation that doesn't allow you to do short-term rentals there. It might be that nobody travels there. You know, so typically you don't want to be a trailblazer and be that first short-term rental testing it out. I'd rather buy where there's proof that just last week there was bookings and a whole bunch of short-term rentals right around here, and you can see that it's actually working. So you can pull up other properties, and I have the benefit of having my mother-in-law own a property right around the corner. So that's what this one is here, this apartment. So I know this property very well. I can see, okay, hers is a 2-bedroom, 1-bath instead of a 1-bed, 1-bath. But you can look at 2 beds, you can look at 3 beds, you can look at 1 beds, you can look at studios just to see, you know, how they each perform. You can see then what their ratings are like. I always recommend looking for ones that have lots of ratings, really high overall rating score. That's a host that knows what they're doing typically. And then you can go down to their calendar and see, okay, as of today, the next few weeks are booked up. We're at December 18th or 19th is today. So you can see next week is all booked up. And then going into the new year, what's her pricing set at? And then you can scroll to the peak season and see what is pricing then. So we're at 122 now. What is it in the summertime? So it's 293. So in the 200s. You can start to get an idea then of in the peak season what pricing goes for, and then in the slow season what pricing goes for. And then the next question that most people have is, well, how do I know that bookings are actually taking place? And so then you can go down to the reviews and you can read through every review. And I always recommend reading every review on every comp in the area. If you're buying there, it's well worth it to really understand who that ideal guest is, what they love about the area, about the property, and then you can also see when they stayed there. So this shows this guy was there a week ago, November, October. You can go through all these and see, are there consistent bookings throughout the entire year, or are there gaps? And that's when you might want to reduce your expected occupancy rate in that time period. So I never use one comp as the end all be all. I'll go back then and click on others and go through each one of them and really get a tight idea of what can I expect in terms of nightly rate and in terms of occupancy. And so that's exactly what I did for this property. Then I pull up after that the analyzer tool. And this is the analyzer tool I use to analyze every single short-term rental. Everybody who I work with in my first vacation rental investment blueprint program uses this, and it just allows you to plug in numbers and then it does calculations for you. So you can look at the purchase price is $415, like I said. Closing costs, we have $12,000 in there. I always like to err on the high side when I estimate numbers in terms of, costs, and then more conservative side in terms of income, just to make sure, okay, in a worst case scenario, does it still work? So after repair value, I think very conservatively, it will appraise for $700. Annual property taxes are $76.90. Annual insurance is $2,500. Repair costs, we're going to put about $200,000 into gutting this whole place and making it 5 really nice units. And then we'll spend about $30,000 on furnishings. We're going to use a private loan. This section here is if we're using a conventional loan, we're going to use a private loan at 10%. So private lender is going to give us the money to buy the property and do some of the rehab, and then we're going to pay out of pocket for part of it as well. So we're going to borrow $445,000 at 10% to get this rehab done, and then we'll refinance into a different loan. So here's what the numbers look like. on average in the different seasons. So the next tab allows you to put in all your projections, again, based off of comps that exist in that specific marketplace. So in the high season, when you go through it, what we can expect is at least 140,000. You saw my mother-in-law's was listed in the high 200s. Again, I like to be super conservative. I know this is also a 1-bedroom, so I'm going to reduce that down to an average of 140 throughout the 6-month peak season. So, which, July is the peak of that, and then it kind of tapers off from there. And then in the low season, $100 a night with a 80% occupancy in the high season and only a 40% in the low season. So if you think about like the low season, really I'm just looking at like weekend numbers because most of the time it's weekends that are getting booked up, and I'm only counting 40%. So it's mostly weekends or long weekends, and that's what's the price point during that time period. You'll get surprised with a 3-month booking here and there, but you don't want to count on that. Again, be very conservative up front. So with very conservative numbers across all 5 units, we're going to make $238,000 income per year just from the nightly rates. And then we're going to factor in cleaning fees at $80 a pop. And so we'll make another $17,000 in cleaning fees, but this will flow through to our cleaners. But it still counts as revenue initially. So we're making $155,000 a year on this property, this 5-unit, relatively affordable property. So that's $13,000 a month of income coming in on this property. So then you can look at your expenses. All the yellow boxes automatically calculate. So this is all pulled through based on the numbers that I put in the previous tab of the private loan cost, at 10% interest only, the insurance, the property taxes, cleaning, and then I put in these numbers. So, what is my estimate on utilities and Wi-Fi? I put in $900. Lawn and snow removal, $150 on average per month. Some months aren't going to need either. Some months will be snow removal. Some months will be lawn. Consumables, $400 a month. So that's like toilet paper, paper towels, stuff like that. And then maintenance, always set aside an amount for maintenance. I recommend 2 to 5% of your overall income. This is a little bit lower because we're going to be gut rehabbing everything. So the maintenance monthly shouldn't be super high. So here's the deal calculations. And this is if I left the private money in place. This is what it would look like on a monthly basis. So I'd have $155,000 income. I'd have $92,000 in expenses. So I'd have $63,000 a year of net cash flow after all my expenses, all my set aside for maintenance, absolutely everything. This is $5,251 a month coming in, or 29% cash on cash return, which means every dollar we put into it, we're getting 29% back. However, what we're gonna do after we're done with the rehab is we're gonna refinance it into long-term debt that's not at 10%, right? Because we don't wanna pay 10% going forward. So then you can turn around and go to a bank and say, okay, can you appraise this? Come out and appraise it. And they'll give us a loan for 75% of the appraised value. It's called a DSCR loan. And so anyone can get that on a property that cash flows. So once that's done, like I said, it's going to be worth $700,000. So the bank will give us 75% or $525,000, and it won't be at 6%. It's going to be more like probably 7.5% conservatively. Might be less than that by the time this is done. That means we're going to leave $135,000 in this deal. We won't be able to refinance out $135,000 of cash. That's our cash that's left in the deal. And then our cash flow is at $54.38. So I thought it was right around $6,000, but it's actually $54.38. Is still pretty good. And again, these are really conservative numbers. So I think it will actually be higher than this, but I'm running the most conservative numbers possible. The cool thing about this is, I left $135,000 into this of cash invested, but on every one of those dollars, I'm making a 48% return every single year just from cash flow. So that's just the cash that's hitting my account. That doesn't include all the extra return that I'm getting on the tax benefit from this property. I just did a video on cost segregations and how you can have get a massive tax benefit from short-term rentals. That doesn't count the appreciation of the property over time. It's going to go up in value like real estate always does. It doesn't count the principal pay down. So every month our guest is paying our mortgage and paying off the mortgage. So there's all these other benefits where you're making money that are in addition to this 48% cash on cash return. If you look at what average cash on cash return is on most real estate investments today, it's nowhere even in the hemisphere or ballpark of a 48% cash on cash return. So super excited about that type of return, and this net cash flow is just going to be additional income coming into our household on a monthly basis, which is going to be awesome. as well. So that's our most recent deal. And like I said, there's going to be, in addition to the income that's coming in, a significant tax savings on 2025 income taxes, because as soon as we're done with the rehab, we're going to do a cost segregation study and we'll be able to write off a huge chunk of this property against next year, 2025's income. So it'll relate to even more income in our pocket as opposed to paying the IRS a huge amount at the end of the year. So that's another benefit that comes with short-term rentals. Again, I just did a video that you can check out by clicking on the link that just popped up. Also, a couple things I just want to point out when it comes to why this deal is so effective and why it's such a high cash flowing deal. Because most people will go out and they'll find the more traditional short-term rental, the one in Smoky Mountains or the one on the beach or the one in Joshua Tree, or these places where everybody talks about short-term rentals. It's like the only place that people think short-term rentals exist are in these mainstream markets. And I'm not against these mainstream markets necessarily, but if the goal is cash flow, I would challenge you to find a property that is anywhere even close to the cost of this property that's going to cash flow close to $6,000 per month of net cash flow. It just does not exist in those more mainstream markets. And so buying just outside of the more mainstream markets or just outside of cities, larger cities, and then also these multi-unit properties, all of a sudden you've got one relatively low set of fixed expenses and multiple streams of income coming in, and it's such a powerful strategy. And then in the peak season, you can rent out the whole property to large groups that travel, which is a commodity. People can't find properties that support 15, 16 people. In a lot of cases, it's anywhere close to affordable, and you can get a really big premium that way as well. So if you're interested in buying a property similar to this one, I work with people every single day to purchase properties just like this, really high cash flowing short-term rentals. And the feedback that I get is that this is life-changing, literally, because it gives people the opportunity to do things that they otherwise wouldn't have been able to do if they're working a 9 to 5 and on a fixed income. The sky's the limit with this. You can consistently add more deals to get to a place of whatever you define as financial freedom for you. So if you're interested in working with me in that program, you can go to the link that just popped up at the bottom of the screen. It's livingoffrentals.com/call. And that's going to take you to a quick questionnaire that you can fill out. And then it will take you directly to a link to my calendar where you can book a call with me, a time that works for you. And we can talk through the details of the program. We can also talk through your goals and just make sure it's a good fit for what you want to do. These aren't like high pressure sales calls or anything like that. I just want to talk through and understand what it is that you want to accomplish and make sure it's a good fit before you enroll in anything. Thanks again for joining me for the video. God bless, and I'll see you in the next video.